Good morning. So I'm going to show you guys how to start and what some of the finished yarn paintings look like today. So just so you know, for materials, you're going to need your piece of cardboard with your image drawn. You're going to need whatever color yarn you're going to start with. You're going to need a bottle of glue and a standard typical Elmer's glue. And you're also going to need a pair of scissors. So I have all my supplies here ready to go. Before we get started though, I would like to show you, for the yarn painting, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a painting that is done with yarn rather than paint. So that being said, there are many different styles of texture that you could add, and I have a really nice template here of different styles of yarn that you could lay down for your project just to kind of mix up the textures and keep it interesting. So here's my sample for you. So if you look up here in the first box, this is yarn that's cut about an inch thick and then layered on top. This one I'll kind of turn so you can see it. It's kind of laid down like carpet, so only one side of the long ways of the yarn is glued down. Here you have your standard, lay down straight and flat, whether you use a thread or a yarn. But based off these two standard styles of how to lay down yarn, you can also mix up the direction in which you're changing or alternating colors just to give it some more variety. Or you can actually add a swerve to it to kind of change the direction in which you're laying to make your project a little more interesting. This is just a bunch of tiny pieces of yarn that have been cut in about maybe a millimeter, and then it's been ripped up and glued into like a large patch, so it's kind of like tiny hairs. It's hard to see that white one. We have some where they're creating a new texture with the yarn, so they're rolling the yarn up into small balls and creating more of a spiral pattern with that. And then down here we have one that's alternating a plain piece of yarn with a braid, plain piece of yarn with a braid. Here we have yarn that's been ripped apart, creating more like a cotton or a fuzz that's been added. And here we have basically a ball that's been kind of crinkled up and then glued as a whole piece with multiple colors, as you could see in there. So here are just 12 small examples of different styles you could lay yarn down in. Please keep in mind that these are not the only styles you could do. You could do others if you are willing to invent it. So just to get things started, I'm going to show you how we're going to begin this process. So I have my piece of cardboard and I already have my image drawn. I chose the casting characters from Inside Out. I will be starting with Sadness's hair, which is why I have my blue out. So I like to personally pre-cut some of my yarn pieces just to make my job go easier and a little faster. So I kind of measure the piece I need, and I kind of will cut a couple of them. Please don't overcut, because if you do overcut, we tend to throw those extra pieces away and it's kind of just a waste of yarn. So please don't do that. Okay. Cool, an extra one. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is in that section of her hair, I will show you. I'm going to be laying the glue down. Everywhere. As you can see, I'm not laying so much glue over my whole project because it's not feasible for me to be able to cover this whole thing in one class period. And one, I don't want to waste the glue, it's just going to dry. But two, when the glue does dry, it's going to be adding an extra level from my cardboard, and I want my project to be nice and consistent and clean when I finish it up, so I'm not going to go crazy with the glue. All right. Don't worry, once it dries in your hands, it just rubs right off. It's standard Elmer's glue. So as you can see, I decided to cover Angry's hair. I'm sorry, Sadness? Bitter? Okay, I decided to cover the section of her hair. I have my pieces of yarn, and hopefully you can see my hands. What we're gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of lay it down, following the shape of her hair around the edge, and I'm not starting directly in the middle. As you can see, I'm not doing multiple pieces of hair at once. So I just laid it around the edge, kind of giving me my first line. All right, I'm starting with my second piece, and what you're gonna notice is I'm slowly gonna use one finger and I'm going to be compressing it next to the other one. Your objective throughout this project, one, is that your whole piece of cardboard gets covered with yarn, but two, you don't want to leave any pieces of cardboard exposed because it's going to make your project look incomplete. So you're going to notice that as I keep laying pieces of yarn, I'm going to keep compressing them together. So I'm on my third piece now. Okay. Haven't compressed yet. I'm on my fourth piece. Okay. So I'm noticing there's some sections of glue that are exposed. So before I move on, I have 4 pieces down, maybe 3, 4, 5 pieces. I'm going to come in and I'm going to compress these pieces of yarn because when this dries, I want this really clean and precise. So I'm kind of just using my fingers and I'm pinching these together as well as patting them down because I do want them to, when they dry, attach to the cardboard to make my project bomb. All right. Cutting the extra off that I don't need. I'm gonna keep you a little bit longer. Come on. Okay. So I'm pinching together and pressing down. And as you can see, you'll see some white in between her strands of hair, and that's just glue that's kind of pinched up, but you're gonna notice they're really clean and tight. And no cardboard will be exposed between. So I'm gonna finish just this little section of her hair, and then I'm gonna show you some finished samples. When you're thinking about a design for your project, please, 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 absolutely no logos, no Nike signs, no Adidas, no Champion. I know that one's a real popular one. Please think of something that's a little more interesting for a viewer to look at. No logos. And the second thing is, if you are choosing something that's a little more simple, such as, you know, you want to do like your name, right? Then maybe we're going to come up with an idea for the background as well, just to keep the viewer's attention. I really want you to focus on the composition here. So if you do want to do something such as your name, please think of a background, something that will keep the viewer's attention. All right, if you have multiple elements in your project, like multiple characters or multiple things for the viewer to look at, then you're fine. So that's my challenge to you. So I am almost done here, hopefully. As you can see, this project is a little time consuming, but it does go much faster than you think it will. Your set pieces of cardboard should not be smaller than 1 foot by 1 foot. If you need a custom size because you want to like do your name or something like that, please let me know. We can always cut you a custom piece. So I noticed that a piece of my yarn was not sticking. So I just added a little bit more glue because I want this to stick. And don't be worried or surprised if little pieces of white are going to be showing, or not showing, but on your actual pieces of yarn that you're trying to attach. The reason is this glue does dry transparent, so it's not going to create like an error or a flaw in your project. I would advise don't go crazy because as the glue does dry, it will get a little crispy, if that's the right word. Okay, so I'm compressing together last. I'm done with that section, and I'm also compressing down. I don't want any ends or anything popping up. So here's my small section of hair, and as you can see, any of the white that's sitting on top of my yarn, which really isn't that much, it will dry transparent, but you can also notice that no piece of cardboard is going to be exposed throughout this. So, small sections, my advice is when doing a big project, whether it's 1 foot by 1 foot or you have a lot of detail, please focus on doing the characters and what the subject of your image is first. And then when you're done with everything, it'll be super easy to come in and lay the background in. So keep in mind, if you have one image, maybe you're gonna make a pattern or a design or some sort of other picture within your background. That being said, I have some examples here for you that I'd like to show you. So this student, Maritza, as you can see, decided to do her name. And because she wanted to do her name, which is fine, she decided to do the full solar system, including the sun, in the background of her project, making it more interesting for viewers to look at. So here's one finished example. I'll hold it a little closer so you can kind of see the different patterns and textures that she decided to apply. So she braided this one and laid it down in a spiral. She ripped this one apart and made it all fuzzy, and so, okay. Here's another one. This student not only chose to do the single laying down of the yarn, but he also decided to rip it apart and create a fun texture. And so he created a texture which is actually really soft. I wish you could feel this one. So this is a really cool one as well, using multiple colors. This student stuck with more of a standard straight line, but they also did mix up their texture as well. And this one also has a nice border around it. I like this one. Okay. This student decided to write something that I cannot read. But because he had simple letters, he decided to also put the earth behind it as well. So this is where we have the two images, right? Something simple, which is fine, but then something else for your viewer to focus on. And then I have another one. So this one, again, you see the different layers and textures that's going on here. So I really like this one. A lot of bright color, definitely complete. Every corner, no cardboard's exposed or showing. And then last but not least, like I mentioned, if you do want a custom shape, that's absolutely fine. We do have extra cardboard. So this one is a goat, obviously, with like a Keith Haring style goats inside. And then they decided to draw a rainbow behind their goat. And as you can see, covering up the student name, this one is just a cut standard piece of cardboard. So there we go. There's another project. So, all right, hope you enjoy it, hope you have fun, and I hope you get creative with laying your yarn down.